many people, and there are politicians and other places that think it's enrichment for developers, and it really isn't. It's trying to bridge the gaps that exist because of the high cost to develop versus the amount of rent that renters can pay.
I'm Cristina Janney with the Hayes Post and Eagle Radio, and I'm speaking with Doug Williams of Grow Hayes about tax incentives on this episode of the Hayes Post podcast.
The one thing to remember about almost all of these programs is that they do not touch any existing tax revenues. They are all based on what is created, and they recover a portion of the taxes that are created. So I know it gets a lot of people thinking that, oh my God, my taxes are going up because they gave this incentive to somebody, and that's not the case. In most cases, with the TIF, what it allows a developer to do is it allows a developer to recover eligible costs of a development, and typically a commercial development. So, as an example, the improvements that were made at Exit 157 a few years ago, that was a TIF that was used. And so the developer, in the case of our community, they're pay-as-you-go. So the developer puts the money up to put the infrastructure into the interstate, to put the sewer, the water, the streets, the land cost, all of those kind of things are recoverable costs. And then as things are developed on that site and property taxes begin to come in, a portion of those property taxes go back to the developer until he has recovered, he or she or they have recovered all of the costs associated that are eligible costs, which are typical, what we refer to as horizontal costs. They're not for buildings and that kind of thing. It's for infrastructure. Could be parking lots, could be land costs, could be sewer, water, electric, gas. Those kind of things are typically eligible costs that they can recover. But again, they only get that in the event something is built. So using the case of Exit 157 again, the developer has invested millions of dollars to put all that infrastructure in place. And since there hasn't been anything developed there, they've not been able to recover any dollars through the TIF. And a TIF can run up to 20 years. So they've got 20 years to do that. But that is how it works. Not all of the costs associated with the property taxes are recoverable by the developer. There's some, the 20 mills that goes to the state for schools and the 1.5 mills that goes to the state, they remain, but the rest of those are eligible to be recovered by the developer. So that's how a TIF works.
Next is Community Incentive Districts. That's a CID.
Yep.
What's a CID?
A CID is what you see when a developer proposes improvements to a facility. These can be what we call vertical improvements. As an example, the mall several years ago approached the city about a 1% CID. And that is an extra sales tax that anybody in the district, any purchases in that district, pay this extra 1% sales tax. And that goes towards the improvements that they agree to make on the premises. And in the mall, I think they did some parking lot improvements. They did some interior improvements of tiling and some things like that. And so that's what a CID does. We use it fairly commonly. The hotels north of Vine, most of the Holiday Inn Express and Hilton Garden Inn, they have CIDs. It can be up to a 2% sales tax and for up to 22 years. So in that case, if you don't shop there, if you don't stay in that hotel and that kind of thing, you don't pay it. It's only those who purchase things there, utilize those services, who are going to pay on a CID tax.
Was that something that Grow Hayes was considering for the new retail development out by Home Depot?
It is something that will probably be a part of that development. You know, all of these incentives are based on, in most cases, it's a but-for decision for the developer. If not for these incentives, I can't afford to do it. It doesn't work out. Many people, and there are politicians and other places that think it's enrichment for developers, and it really isn't. It's trying to bridge the gaps that exist because of the high cost to develop versus the amount of rent that renters can pay. So, we have looked at that and will look at that. Don't know for sure how that's going to lay out, but that would be an instance where a CID would be in place for a period of time. There was one at Home Depot for, I believe, 10 years. that went off, and there's several of them around the community. And if you go to other communities, almost any new shopping center areas and that kind of thing will have a CID attached to it. Different states call it different things, but what it boils down to is an extra sales tax paid by those who shop there.
Okay. Next, we have on the industrial side, we have an IRB, industrial revenue bonds.
That's a complicated one. That goes back a long ways, and traditionally it was a mechanism used for manufacturers to finance improvements and construction of manufacturing facilities. And a municipality would issue these bonds, and that's how the manufacturer would finance their improvements. They're not really used in that manner anymore to raise funds. Typically, it's still a mechanism where bonds are sold, but in 99% of the cases that I'm familiar with, the actual company buys the bonds. So they really aren't bonds issued to the general public. The developer buys the bonds. But what it does allow a manufacturer or an eligible organization to do is to defer to eliminate sales tax on the materials used to construct the facility, and also get potentially up to a 10-year tax abatement for some portion of the property taxes. In the example, I'll use the most recent example, the A&A Coors project. They applied for industrial revenue bonds. They were granted industrial revenue bonds by the city of Hayes. That will allow them to not have sales tax on the materials used to construct the facility, and they get a 50% property tax abatement for 10 years. Now, I go back to my initial comment. There's that lot out there right now is generating $200 or $300 worth of property taxes.
And that's in the industrial park out by Hess.
Yes.
They're moving from their 8th Street facility, and they're building a new facility that is a distributor for a great portion of Northwest Kansas in the industrial park.
That's correct. It's behind Glassman Corporation. So that lot currently is generating $300 or $400 a year in property taxes. When the building is constructed, I would estimate the property taxes probably to be in excess of $50,000 a year. So while they're getting a 50% break on the $50,000, $25,000 of that, using that example, is going to still be coming into the city, the county, the school district, that kind of thing. So still a net win. But it does allow them to defray some of the costs, which are extremely high in developing this new facility, employing new people, allowing them to expand their business and operate more efficiently. So everybody wins in that scenario.
Well, the next two have to do with housing. And we've heard a lot of the RHID, the Reinvestment Housing Incentive District, in connection with some housing developments that are ongoing right now.
Yes, it used to be the Rural Housing Incentive District because they limited it to counties that had less than 60,000 population. They later opened it up to all counties, so they renamed it the Reinvestment Housing Incentive District. And it's basically a TIF for housing. It allows a developer to put in the streets, the sewer, the water, the electric, all the things that go with it. And then once homes are built, it allows them to recover a portion of the property taxes on those homes for up to 25 years or until they've recovered their costs, whichever happens first. And so given the example of Heart of America's addition in the Tallgrass area, they spent about $3.5 million putting the infrastructure in for those first 66 lots. So again, because the policy within the city of Hayes and the county is pay as you go, which means the developer fronts all the cost. And then now that we have houses out there constructed and they're starting to pay property tax, they begin to recover a portion of those property taxes to recoup themselves for the investment that was made. Obviously, they sell the lots, but they sold the lots for $10,000 or $15,000 with the cost of $50,000 or $60,000 per lot and all the infrastructure costs. So they have to recover that in some way. But the winners in all that are the homeowners out there because they get an inexpensive lot because it was developed by a not-for-profit organization. and they don't have special assessments, which traditionally new developments have, because of the RHID. That's a great success story because it's developed so rapidly that the increment is in place and it's paying back well, and it will perform as you would draw it up in a perfect scenario.
Well, with the labor costs and construction costs and material costs continuing to increase, things like this incentive district allow homeowners to actually be able to get into homes that they may not be able to otherwise. And a lot of that has hinged around workforce development too, being able to get workers into Hays and get them into homes so they have some place to live.
That's absolutely true. We believe that the key to rural development begins with housing. If you don't have housing, you can't keep people in your community, and you can't recruit people into your community. And we have fought this battle. We continue to. We have a housing shortage. We have a rental property shortage. And so keeping a workforce, if people can't find a decent place to live, they're not going to stay in a community. If people can't find a nice place to live and an affordable level, they're not going to move into a community. And so we're not going to be able to recruit people for the medical center, people for Fort Hays State University, wherever. I hear this all the time from employers that they can't get people recruited because of our housing situation. And so these type of programs make that possible, and they're very important to be able to create a workforce and maintain a workforce.
This last one, the NRP, the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program, also has to do with housing.
It does. It's more geared to older neighborhoods in a community, wherein it allows a piece of property in an NRP district to make improvements and have the new, as an example, a house might be worth $50,000, appraised on the tax rolls at $50,000, and somebody comes in and blades it off and puts a new structure on there that is now appraised for $250,000. Well, it allows for that person to get a rebate of 60% of their property taxes for 10 years in a residential neighborhood. In a commercial neighborhood, it allows you to recover 90% of the increment that is created by your improvement. It requires a minimum of a $25,000 improvement, but it's been effectively used in different things, like you see some new homes constructed, some duplexes constructed in the older parts of a community, and those people are able to offset some of the costs associated with that new construction by utilizing the NRP and getting 60% of the property taxes that are created by the improvement back for a period of time.
So we end up having some infill and also maybe a way to deal with blight of getting rid of some old houses that need to be torn down and put something new in. Old
houses, old commercial buildings. One that's been in the, last year or the year before sometime, the city of Hays expanded the NRP district. Both Ellis and Victoria have established NRP districts to try and promote reinvestment. But when Hays expanded it, the properties on North Vine up to I-70 were part of the NRP district. And so the roadway in would be a candidate to be able to be knocked down. And again, it's only on the additional value that is created by the improvement. So if that's knocked down and the appraised value goes up for whatever goes in there, they'll be able to file for the NRP and get some level of tax consideration for a period of 10 years to offset some of their costs.